you thinking about renting versus buying in Kansas City? Well, today we're going to break down the differences between renting and buying, and we're going to show you all the costs, and that way you can make the best decision for yourself and your family.
Hey, Zach Morton and Max Jones, and we are local real estate agents right here in Kansas City, both on the Missouri side and the Kansas side. And today we're talking about the age-old question, should I rent or should I buy? Well, let me start with telling you that's exactly why we put this channel together with hundreds of videos all about Kansas City to help you make that decision. Because what we found a lot of times when people come to a new city is they go straight to renting and they waste a lot of time and they waste a lot of potential equity gain. This channel is going to let you feel the city out a little bit better, answer a lot of those questions, give you a feel for what these different areas, neighborhoods, school districts are like. So when you get here and you talk with us and we show you around, we can pinpoint right to where you want to be so you'll love the place you live right from the get-go and don't waste your valuable time and money renting. Let's talk about a few questions that people ask us all the time. We'll start with the current buying market or owning property. We'll talk about what we've seen over the last few years and where it's at now. We're also going to look at what trends that we've seen over the last few years. And then last time, is it a good time or a bad time to buy property right now? And we'll run through those with rental properties first. So let's start with the market right now. Where is it over the last few years? And I can say that right now, year to date over last year, we've seen a 5.3% increase on the median sales price. So continuing to go up. Over the last 3 years, of course, we've all been through COVID recently. We saw 20%, almost 22% 1 year with real estate appreciation, followed by a year of 15%. But Kansas City overall, kind of that Midwest, we've been pretty steady through the years, even in the downturns. And we usually see that 3 to 5% appreciation year over year.
Yeah, on average, if you go back to the Great Depression, you'll see on average a 5% year over year appreciation, and we're right back on that trend line. So if you look at the graph of, you'll see a little bit steeper trend line for the past few years, and now we're right back. So I'd say the Fed has accomplished their goals by raising rates to kind of tamp down that crazy inflation we all experienced.
Yep. Trends and where we think the market's headed over the next few years. So I think we are seeing the supply build a little bit. And I think as rates start to come down, the Fed just announced that yesterday that it's dropping at 0.5%. That's not going to hit the long-term mortgage rate right away, but the trend is rates are coming down. I think the more that they come down, the more buyers are going to get back into looking at properties again. And that is going to take that supply down and make it a little more competitive. So I do foresee if rates continue to come down like we're kind of seeing, that it's going to get more competitive out there. It's going to start to get harder to find properties again, and it may be a little more difficult in the years to come.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll cause prices to pump up higher a whole lot, but I do think it will gobble into that inventory and make it a little more competitive, a little less selection. So right now is actually a good time to be a buyer. Because rates have come down off their highs almost a point and a half, and you have stuff to choose from and you're not competing against 20 other offers. So it is a really good time to be a buyer in today's market.
Yeah, fourth quarter of this year I'm really excited for all the first time buyers that are getting in because they just missed the last 2 years of craziness and they have a chance, or FHA buyers, all that. So it's a really great opportunity right now to go out and find your home. So as far as the rental market right now in Kansas City, I have, we're gonna jump to my computer screen here real quick, and I've got the whole KC metro area over here on the left, all these little blue dots. So the median price point in Kansas City for rents is $1,600, $1,600 a month, but I don't really think that's reality or what we see. A lot of that is in the inner city, downtown Kansas City, some of the spots you might not really want to live in that aren't as safe. They kind of bring that price down. So I want to show you what we see, kind of boots on the ground for the clients that we work with. And there's kind of two places I want to point out. We'll start looking up here north of the river. So that you're going to get a little more bang for your buck in the Northland. And I'm going to focus on good school, like the A+ school district areas. And then we'll go down to Overland Park, which is one of Kansas City's most sought after areas, and look at some rentals there. But on average, what we see in the Northland around the Park Hill School District, you can see right here, you've got a split entry for $2,300 a month. You're going to find your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garages for right around $2,000. This is half a duplex right here for $1,600. You can get into your nicer 4,000 square foot plus homes for almost $4,000 a month. But on average, what we're seeing in the Northland for something in a decent school district that you'd want to move into with your family, you're looking at probably $2,200 a month plus. To go to one of Kansas City's most popular suburbs down here on the Kansas side is Overland Park. And we'll zoom in here. You can see you've got lots of options to choose from there as well. We'll zoom in a little tighter. Right in the heart of Overland Park. This is going to put you in that Blue Valley School District, which is one of the top rated school districts in the whole state of Kansas, and #1 for Kansas City as well. But you can see, all right, we're not going to quite get as much bang for your buck. Our prices are going down or going up a little bit, and the house sizes are coming down, and we're into these little small ranches, maybe a 1-car garage, and you're at $2,800 a month. There's $22 for a little ranch, $28 for a little side-to-side split. But a lot of these little ranches in the older part of Overland Park. So you can see, get a little more for your money up there, but on average for, $2,000 plus a month, you're gonna be able to find a decent single family home in the KC metro area.
So I would say that $2,200 to $2,400 equate a month to rent equates to roughly that median price point for Kansas City of the $355. $355,000 purchase price, pretty closely, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And definitely your monthly payment is going to be less if you purchase a home than if you rent a home. And it's just simple because the investor that owns the rental property that you're renting from, whether it's a big corporation or whether it's from a smaller landlord that only owns a handful of properties, they're in the business of making some money off of that investment. And so they're going to earn what's called cash flow, and they'll have their payment, their cost of, usually they'll buy a property with 25% down and then finance the rest, and they'll have a house payment. And then they're going to want to make some cash flow on top of that monthly expense that they have, which is usually a minimum of $200-$300. It could be as much as $400, $500, $600 a month in cash flow. So you're definitely going to get more bang for your buck if you purchase a property versus renting. All right, so we've covered price and the difference between renting and buying, but we haven't discussed costs, and there's a difference there. So a lot of times with costs, if you're a renter, very minimal. The additional costs, you just really have your rent, and that's about it. But there's a lot of costs that could be there.
It can kind of go into this. So rent is set it, forget it, just walk away and whatever. But at the end of your lease or whatever, you have nothing to show for it, right? You've just made all those payments. It's gone. Nothing's tax deductible. It's just the money is gone. But with owning a property, there are some expenses. There's some maintenance and things that you got to keep an eye out for. So like you've got your down payment. I will say there's a lot of great first-time homebuyer programs out right now. In fact, there's one that you can get started for $500 down, and they're paying the difference. But anywhere from 5 to 20% down is what the normal convention, or 500 to 20% down. There's a lot of programs out there, anywhere from $500 down to 20% down to have a mortgage that doesn't have mortgage insurance involved, put you in a little better position.
You've got your principal and interest, which make up your taxes and your insurance, and that makes up your monthly payment. So, most people don't really think of that versus renting. You got your 2 payments, but then all of your other costs, which are your maintenance, your repairs, if the house needs a paint job, if it needs a new air conditioner, the joys of home ownership.
And that usually comes out to about 1% of the property price a year. So you can kind of factor that in for some of those CapEx expenses. You might not see them for 10 years, but if you factor in that 1% a year at the end of 10 years, you put in an air conditioner, there's, could be $5,000. So you just got to kind of plan for that stuff. And then there's HOAs, depending on where you live, if a pool's important to you, or park or manicured area, you might have HOA expenses.
Or if you need your windows washed, like I'm having done right outside my house.
That could be an expense too.
That could be an expense. Yeah, luckily they decided to start washing the back windows right where we're shooting this video.
Yeah.
But so there's the joys of home ownership type stuff that you have with owning a home that you don't have to mess with when you're renting. When you're done, you're walking away and you're not taking anything with you either. So I think there's some opportunity costs there, you don't really think about, but what you miss out on is the real cost.
Yeah, because even though you're paying your mortgage and your interest and all that, when you're paying towards principal, that's like putting money right back in the bank. And when you're paying your interest payment, that payment is tax deductible. So you don't have to pay taxes on that payment. So you get a little bit of a break there. And if the property's appreciating on average right now about 5.2% a year, you've got all that gains going up with it. So I just can't stress enough, when you're spending money on your house, you're putting money back in the bank.
Yeah. So that median price point that we mentioned earlier of $355,000, 5% of 300 is $15,000 a year. That just by being invested in the market, you're for that year, you would be missing out on $15,000 or a little more for $355,000. That offsets the cost of an air conditioner or the cost of a paint job. Plus, if you improve your house, it could potentially be worth more in the market. So people want to buy move-in ready homes. And so the nicer your home is, the more move-in ready it is, the higher on its price range you'll be able to sell it for.
Let's talk about kind of the vibe of renting versus buying.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing really, is your quality of life while you're living your life.
Yeah, you got to live somewhere, right? So whether you're renting or buying, you got to live somewhere. So the cost to live somewhere is there no matter where you're at. Yeah, the vibe, I mean, I'm not going to say I've never rented a property. Actually in college, I lived in a fourplex, and some of the vibes there, you can't pick your neighbors. And in a fourplex, you've got some really close neighbors. You share walls. And I can say that, there's some things that weren't great about that. It worked out in college, and it was cheap, and it got me through, but it's nothing like the vibe of living in a neighborhood where everybody's invested in their house on that street. There's pride of ownership. You want to meet your neighbors versus, in a rental, you may not want to meet your neighbors. There's some pretty shady characters that pass through. It's temporary housing. They're just in and out. So you never know who you're going to get. But primarily when you're buying property, your neighbors are going to be just like you, kind of in the same position in life, raising kids. And I've met a lot of great people in the different houses I've lived in that have become best friends, that I'm so happy that, that happened.
Yeah, for me, I think of when the quality of life is, if my wife wants to paint the room, the bedroom of our son, you don't want to do it if you're renting. You're just like, let's just live with it. We're only going to be here for a short time. And then you end up being there longer than you really think. So, you deal with a lot of things that you would improve if you owned it, but you don't. So you just kind of live in, I always joke and say living in squalor. When something isn't quite right around the house, it's like, oh man, this is broken. And, you can call the landlord and hassle them to come out and fix things, but it is a pain in the butt to do that. So when you have the ability just to improve your house as time goes along, and you just feel good about it.
Yeah, and in neighborhoods with pools or lakes or things that bring the community together, there's that sense of community, and it's, that can be huge too. The kids have other kids in the neighborhood, they're going to be there. It's not a transient situation, so these kids are going to grow up together, so you invest more time into those relationships, and yeah, just all around a good vibe. That's why I think most people own houses. Let's talk about benefits of renting versus owning in the short term. Really, the benefit of renting in the short term is you can just walk away. It's easy. Your lease is up, you're gone. And that's about it. I can't think of any other benefits, honestly. The benefits of owning in the short term is basically, once you're in the real estate market, it's good just to stay in, kind of like the stock market, because if we have one of those years of 22 to 15% appreciation, if you're not in the market, you totally missed out on that. And can you imagine, you miss that year of appreciation and now you want to get in the market, it costs you 20% more to get the same house, or 35% more because you missed those 2 years. So just like anything, even if you're only in for short term, this is what I always recommend to everybody, because let's say you buy your house and the market goes the other way, you go down 5% and you have to sell your house because you're changing cities. Well, the city you're moving to, likely the property values are down 5% as well. So you're exchanging your equity position in the same exact market. So it may feel like you might be losing money, but really you're selling your house for 5% less and you're buying your new house for 5% less. So your equity position remains the same, and you just keep riding that wave. So I still think it's a bad idea in the short term to rent.
Yeah, it would have to be super short term. I'd say if you plan on being somewhere less than a year, then you might want to rent, because the cost of selling a property is typically right around 6%, maybe 7%. And we're seeing around 5.8% appreciation this year is what we realized. So, if you're going to be somewhere less than a year, maybe you do. But man, it's a pain in the neck to be moving in less than a year. So it would have to be really short term for me to start to see it make sense. Yeah, it's Warren Buffett's old adage. I think we've mentioned it on the channel previously, but it's he says it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And we did have some people that thought the market was going to tank. They had a recency bias from 2009. And they couldn't believe the prices were going up as fast as they were, and they did sell before COVID and turned into renters, and that was not the best decision. Even people now I still talk to people that say, Max, what do you think about the market? When's it gonna crash? And I really don't think it's going to.
I mean, it hasn't in the last 100 years. I mean, other than a little blip for a year or so.
Right. Yeah, that 2008-9 time frame was it was caused by a mortgage crisis where
there's a lot of fraud involved in that.
A lot of fraud, and it was a lot of people. They were doing mortgages based on stated income, meaning you didn't have to provide documentation. You could just tell them you made $1 million a year, and they'd say, "Sounds good to me." And as long as you could make the payment, they'd stick you in there. Well, if you do that millions of times and then batch all those mortgages together, then people were gambling on those batches of mortgages, and it was over levered, and it caused a cataclysm in the market that forced a lot of people to lose their jobs. And that's why there was a flood of inventory. So unless we see a cataclysm in the market with a flood of inventory, then we're not going to see it. We'll see it coming, I guess. It won't just be, oh my gosh, we wake up tomorrow and there's a crash. But I don't see it coming right now. I see that we're probably going to experience, like we have over the past 100 years, 5% year over year appreciation. Okay, so we've discussed what the future may look like for real estate. One of the things we haven't really mentioned is inflation and how real estate can be a hedge against inflation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen quite a bit. In fact, that's why the Fed started raising the rates to slow it down. But yeah, real estate is considered a hedge against inflation. It's way better. Can you imagine if you had all your cash just sitting in the bank versus in a house over the last 3 years, what that would look like? I mean, you would be down 20, 30, 35% on your cash right now versus real estate going the opposite direction. And you got to live somewhere, right?
Yeah, so definitely want to have you don't want to have all your cash in the bank. You do want to have it invested in something. We aren't financial advisors, but have it in an asset that is appreciating, because really it's not that things are becoming more expensive. People think of inflation as, boy, the price of eggs sure are going up. And yes, they are. The dollar amount is changing. But really what causes that is our government prints more money and more US dollars get put into circulation. And what that does is it changes the fraction of, you have a fraction of dollars, and when there's more, then they become worth less. So that's what you don't want to do, is just have a bunch of cash that's being devalued. You want to be invested in assets. We tend to think that real estate is one of the best assets you can be invested in because it's real. That's why it's called real estate.
Yeah,
it's real property. And so, the stock market is not real. It's real, but you're buying a portion of a company, and you have to be pretty savvy to know how good that company's doing versus the other companies that it's competing against. You have to know a lot, but with real estate, it's really pretty simple, and you can go touch it and improve it, and it's a magical asset to be invested in.
Yeah, borrow against it, refinance it, do all kinds of cool things. Big fans of it. But yeah, with inflation, real estate is a great hedge against it. And if you're not in real estate, get into something that's a great hedge, because inflation's gonna keep on happening. Hey, how about inflation, how it pertains to renting? So it sucks, just to be straight, because you have got no control over your rental prices, especially if you're gonna be there over a year. Your lease can change. They're gonna start asking you for any money that you are saving. You're sticking in the bank that's getting devalued unless you're throwing it in the stock market. So there's just not a lot of good things when you're in an inflationary environment as a renter, because everything's out of your control.
Yeah, I'll share a story with you real quick that just popped into my head. My brother was a renter for several years, and I tried to tell him, hey, you need to buy a house, and that sort of thing. His community that he was renting in, they would get a hold of him about 60 days before his lease was up and tell him that, hey, prices are going up, significantly. So $200-300 a month. And if you don't give notice that you're going to move out within a couple days, or if you don't sign the lease for that new higher amount, then they're going to raise it even higher on a month-to-month basis to where it's almost unaffordable. So if you don't have your ducks in a row and the ability to get out of that scenario, then you're just at the mercy of what they say. So now you're locked in for another year, and then you go about your business and you don't get your ducks in a row, and here comes that letter again that says, if you don't sign this lease at this new higher amount, then we're going to gouge you for an unaffordable amount to go month to month. So you really have no control. And it took him several years to get out of that situation, to get his credit in order, to get his ducks in a row, get his down payment together. It took him a lot longer than he wished. And he ended up buying a house before COVID. I think he bought it for like $185, and that same house is like $265,000 now. He could have done a lot better had he gotten invested earlier. And Zach likes to talk about the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. And I think that analogy is perfect for real estate and makes me think of my brother. It's not because we sell houses that we're telling these stories. Even with my brother, it's not because I was selfish and trying to earn a commission to sell him a house. It's just really, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And that's why we invest in rental properties. We love owning real estate.
We follow our own advice. This isn't just us blowing smoke up your ass to sell you houses. This is real advice that we honor, we do ourselves. So.
Yeah, there was a really cool graphic I'll throw up here in a second, but saying that all the cities in the top 10 cities in the USA where people are paying more than asking price, and Kansas City happens to be, I think it's probably the only one that's not coastal, but was surprised to see that we're like in the top 10 cities that people are flocking to and in some cases fighting over.
Yep, it's a growing city. Our population's growing. I think it's because it's a very affordable area. Relative to some of the other surrounding areas. So get in while the getting's good.
Yeah, so like we said earlier, that's the exact reason we created this channel, to make it easier for you guys to make that decision on where you want to live, so you don't have to come here and rent first and waste time and waste equity position and set yourself up for failure. You can check out our channel, get a feel for the area, but when you're ready, reach out to us anytime. We love talking about this stuff. We live it, can help you really hone in on the area. So when you get here, we make super efficient use of your time to help you find that perfect house for you and your family so you can love where you live.
Yeah, please use us as a resource. That's one of the things we feel like is our job is, whether you come to Kansas City and we show you around all these areas, we're going to do an initial consultation with you, find out what's important to you and your family. And then that will inform us on, this sounds like maybe they are good for Parkville, or maybe they're good for Liberty or Overland Park. So we'll find out what's important to you, and then we'll know, hey, we need to teach them about this area, and we'll zone in on the right suburb, and then we'll zone in on the right neighborhood, and then we'll zone in on the right house for you guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week in the next video.